She's going to hate you, Kang Min said. Carolyn Wagner looked up from smoothing her navy dress for the third time. You're supposed to say she'll love me. I don't lie to people I care about. His hand found hers across the leather seat of his black Mercedes. Mama Sophie doesn't love easily. She doesn't even like easily. My last girlfriend locked herself in the bathroom after 20 minutes and refused to come out. My mother had to slide her coat under the door. She hated my last girlfriend so much that Jessica locked herself in the bathroom and never came back to the table. His voice held amusement, but Carolyn caught the tension in his jaw. My mother had to slide her coat under the door. You're telling me this now? Would it have helped to know earlier? No, but I could have panicked properly. He laughed, that low sound that had caught her attention 8 months ago when he'd walked into her design firm wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. She'd pitched him a rebrand for his restaurant group. Modern Korean aesthetic, honoring tradition while appealing to contemporary Manhattan diners. He'd approved everything, then asked her to dinner. She'd said no. Professional boundaries, conflict of interest. He'd asked again after the rebrand launched. She'd said yes. 8 months later, she was in love with a man whose family business extended far beyond bulgogi and banchan. Any other encouraging words? Carolyn asked as they turned onto a tree-lined drive in Westchester. She thinks I should have married someone from a family with useful business connections. Kang Min's thumb traced circles on her palm. But she values strength and honesty above everything else, so be yourself. The terrified version, or the version pretending not to be terrified. The version that told a client his taste was aggressively unfortunate and got him to thank you for it. Carolyn smiled. Mr. Harrison needed saving from those velvet Elvis paintings. Kang Min pulled into a circular driveway lined with expensive cars. She's protective. I'm her oldest grandson, her favorite. She wants to make sure whoever I choose is worthy. And if I'm not, then she'll make sure you know it. But that won't happen. The house was traditional Korean architecture merged with American luxury. Even from outside, Carolyn could hear the noise, conversations, laughter, music, family chaos. Kang Min, finally, his mother appeared, elegant in black. And Carolyn, everyone's waiting. Kang Min, finally. His mother appeared, elegant in black. And Carolyn, everyone's waiting. The dining room held at least 20 people crowded around a table, groaning with food. Japchae, galbi, kimchi, banchan, fresh rice, stews. Everyone talked over each other in Korean and English, gesturing with glasses and chopsticks. Kang Min made quick introductions. His father Antonio, his brother David and wife Lisa, sister Ji-yoon and her husband, cousins, aunts, uncles, children. The names blurred. But Carolyn smiled and bowed slightly to each person. At the head of the table sat Mama Sophie, tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, but radiating authority. White hair in a perfect bun, sharp dark eyes, elegant in burgundy with a jade pendant at her throat. She looked at Carolyn with an expression that could have frozen wine. Mama Sophie, Kang Min said, this is Carolyn Wagner. Good evening, Mama Sophie. It's an honor to meet you. Mama Sophie's eyebrows rose. You don't speak Korean. No, Mama Sophie, but I'm learning. Kang Min's been teaching me. I'm not good yet, but I'm trying. Trying. Impossible to read. Sit. We'll see if you can handle a real Korean New Year dinner. It wasn't a test of the food. It was a test of the family. Mama Sophie asked pointed questions between courses. Carolyn's background, parents, education, business, understanding of Korean culture, intentions with Kang Min. Mama Sophie, Kang Min warned. That's enough. I'm getting to know her. My grandson brings home a woman for the first time in 2 years. I'm allowed to ask questions. It's okay. Carolyn met Mama Sophie's gaze directly. My parents are from Virginia, though my grandmother's family came from Georgia. My father teaches African American studies at Columbia. My mother passed when I was 20. I went to Parsons for design. My business is small but successful. I respect Korean culture deeply, though I have much to learn. And my intentions with Kang Min are to build something real and lasting. Something shifted in Mama Sophie's expression. Not warmth, but a slight thaw. At least you're honest. Better than the last one who told me what she thought I wanted to hear. I don't lie to people I respect, Carolyn said, and I respect anyone who's kept a family like this together. Mama Sophie's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. After dinner, while the men retreated to the study with low voices and business talk, Carolyn helped the women clear dishes. In the kitchen, Grace caught her hand. You did well, she said quietly. Mama Sophie doesn't warm easily, but you stood your ground without disrespect. That matters to her. She's formidable, Carolyn admitted, rinsing plates carefully. She's protective, Ji-yoon said, joining them at the sink. Kang Min is special to her. She wants to make sure whoever he chooses can handle this life. The family, the expectations, the complexity of it all. From the dining room, Mama Sophie's voice drifted in, speaking rapid Korean to one of the aunts. Carolyn couldn't understand most of it, but certain words stood out. Photographs, old house, things left behind. What's she talking about? Carolyn asked, drying a serving dish. Ji-yoon glanced toward the other room. She does this around holidays, gets nostalgic about things she lost, things that can never be replaced. The fire, Grace added softly, her voice careful. 1985, Christmas Eve. Their house in Queens burned down. Electrical fire. Everyone got out safely, thank God, but the house was a total loss. Carolyn's designer instincts, the part of her that solved impossible problems for demanding clients, perked up. That must have been devastating. Grace and Ji-yoon exchanged glances, that particular look family members share when deciding how much to reveal. Her wedding photos, Ji-yoon finally said. They were the only pictures of her entire family together, both her family and Jin's family. Most of them are gone now, passed away over the years. Those photos were the only visual record she had of them, of that whole chapter of her life. And my father-in-law's love letters, Grace continued, her voice even softer. Jin, Kang Min's grandfather, he died 15 years ago. But before that, he wrote Sophie letters throughout their courtship and marriage. She kept them in a wooden box. Beautiful, romantic letters in Korean and English, their own private language. Carolyn's throat tightened. All of them. Everything in the fire, Ji-yoon confirmed. The photos, the letters, and her mother's apron. Hand-sewn in Korea with traditional embroidery. Flowers and birds, intricate work. The only tangible piece of her mother Sophie had. She wore it when she first learned to cook American food, trying to bridge two worlds. Gone in one night, Grace said, staring out the window as if she could see it happening. Sophie never mentions it. Won't let anyone talk about the letters or photos. says dwelling on loss doesn't help, that you have to move forward. But last year at Christmas, I saw her crying, just for a moment, late at night, when she thought no one was looking. She was holding an old newspaper clipping about the fire. She's never tried to recover anything, Carolyn asked carefully. Sometimes salvage companies save items from fires, or insurance companies keep detailed records. It was 40 years ago, Ji-yoon said gently. Total loss. The firefighters said nothing survived intact. Sophie made her peace with it. Or at least, that's what she tells us. But Carolyn had seen enough clients hiding grief behind professional facades to recognize it in Mama Sophie's sharp eyes. The way she touched her jade pendant during dinner, seeking comfort from something tangible. The tightness around her mouth when someone mentioned New Year's traditions, as if remembering celebrations from before the fire, when she still had her mother's apron and Jin's letters and photos of everyone she'd lost. What if the items weren't completely lost? What if somewhere in the dusty archives of salvage companies or forgotten corners of auction houses or storage units, something had survived the flames and decades? She filed the information away carefully, her mind already cataloguing possibilities, not sure yet what she was going to do with it, but knowing somehow it mattered more than anything else from this evening. The evening wound down around 10, when Carolyn said goodbye to Mama Sophie. The older woman was sitting by the window, gazing out with an expression of distant melancholy. Good night, Mama Sophie. Mama Sophie looked up. For just a moment, her guard dropped. Carolyn saw the weight of years, of loss, of things that could never be recovered. Then the sharp assessment returned. You have strength, Carolyn Wagner. She briefly touched Carolyn's hand. That matters more than speaking Korean or knowing chopsticks. Strength of character. Don't lose that. I won't. In the Mercedes heading back to Manhattan, Kang Min was quiet before speaking. She liked you. How can you tell? She touched your hand. She never does that unless she means it. He glanced over. What she said about strength, that's her highest compliment. Carolyn looked at the city lights, thinking about wedding photos and love letters and a hand-sewn apron. Tell me about your grandfather. About Jin. Kang Min's expression softened. He was everything to her. Met after the Korean War. He was in New York, establishing the family business. She came over in the 50s, barely spoke English. He wrote her letters every day until she agreed to marry him. Even after they married, he'd write whenever he traveled, every single trip. She must have loved those letters. They were her most prized possession. His voice grew quiet. Losing them in the fire, losing everything, it broke something in her. She's never mentioned them since. Carolyn's hands curled in her lap. The problem solver in her was already working, already thinking. What if she could find them? What if she could bring back what Mama Sophie lost? 40 years, total fire loss, items scattered or destroyed. Impossible. But Carolyn Wagner had never been afraid of impossible. What are you thinking? Kang Min asked. Just processing the evening. Your family is amazing. I want to be part of it. He smiled and squeezed her hand. You already are. But Carolyn knew better. She'd passed the first test, earned the first approval. But if she wanted to truly belong, if she wanted to prove to Mama Sophie and herself that she was worthy of this family, she needed to do something more, something impossible. She needed to bring back what was lost. And she had exactly 3 weeks until New Year's Eve came around again. Carolyn couldn't sleep. She lay in her apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening. Mama Sophie's sharp eyes, the weight of her brief touch, the melancholy when she'd looked out the window, seeing ghosts, all of it, all of them, gone. Grace's words echoed. Carolyn thought about her own mother, lost to cancer when Carolyn was 20. She remembered the desperate wish to have more, to hold something tangible, proof that the person you loved had existed. Mama Sophie had lost everything in one night. Photos of her parents, siblings, Jin's family, all the people who'd shaped her, most now gone forever. Letters in Jin's handwriting, her mother's apron, hand-stitched across an ocean. 40 years of living with that absence. At 2 a.m., Carolyn gave up on sleep. She made coffee, opened her laptop, and started searching. 1985, Queen's House Fire, Christmas Eve. The search loaded archives from old newspapers. She scrolled through December 1985 until she found it. Family escapes, Christmas Eve blaze, a grainy photograph, a house consumed by flames. The address, 4718 162nd Street, Flushing. Carolyn read every word. Electrical fire. Family escaped unharmed. Structure was a total loss. Total loss. Damning words. But Carolyn had tracked down impossible items for clients. Vintage chandeliers, Art Deco fixtures, Italian marble from closed quarries. Impossible usually just meant no one's tried hard enough. She opened a new search. 1985. Fire salvage Queen's recovery. Fire investigation procedures. Insurance claims. Salvage companies. She took notes methodically, breaking down the impossible into steps. Step 1. Fire department records. Step 2. Salvage company trail. Step 3. Auction houses, estate sales, donation centers. 40 years ago. Items everyone believed destroyed. A search likely ending in disappointment. But she kept seeing Mama Sophie's face. The weight of decades of loss. At 3 a.m., she decided. She was going to find them. Photos, letters, apron. She was going to bring back what Mama Sophie lost. Not just for approval, though that mattered. Not just to prove herself worthy, though that was part of it. Because it was right. Because Mama Sophie deserved her history back. 3 weeks until New Year's Eve. 21 days for the impossible. She grabbed her project notebook and started planning. Happy New Year, by the way. As Carolyn begins her impossible quest to find Mama Sophie's lost treasures, I'm curious. What are your New Year's plans? Are you celebrating with family like the Kang-Wagner clan, or doing something completely different? And more importantly, what city are you reading this from right now? I love knowing where my readers are scattered across the world. Drop a comment and let me know. If you're enjoying Carolyn's journey so far and want to see if she actually pulls off this miracle, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, the search gets even more intense from here, and you won't want to miss what happens when she walks into that estate auction house. Now, back to the story. Carolyn has 3 weeks, 3 impossible tasks, and absolutely no idea where to start. Monday morning, Carolyn called her assistant. Rebecca, clear my schedule for 3 weeks. Move everything non-urgent to January. Everything? You have the Tribeca Loft presentation Thursday and the Brooklyn restaurant rebrand next week. Reschedule them all. Family emergency. It wasn't entirely a lie. This was family, or would be, if she succeeded. Are you okay? Is it Kang-min? I'm fine. I just need time for something important, something that can't wait. She didn't tell Kang-min, not yet. He'd either tried to talk her out of it. It's been 40 years, Carolyn. Let it go. Or he'd want to help. And this needed to be her gift, her proof she understood what family meant, that she was willing to fight for it. By Tuesday, Carolyn was at the New York Public Library's research division, hunched over microfilm readers that made her eyes ache. She found the fire department's incident report, more detailed than the newspaper articles. Engine company 295 responding. Structure fire 4718 162nd Street. Electrical origin basement level. Full involvement upon arrival. Family evacuated prior. Total loss. Salvage minimal. Salvage minimal. But not zero. Those two words were everything. She found the insurance claim next, filed 3 weeks after the fire. The itemized list was frustratingly vague. Furniture, clothing, household items, personal effects. Estimated value in $1985. No specific mention of photographs or letters or aprons. But there, at the bottom, a notation that made her pulse quicken. Items recovered by Borough Recovery Services. Storage pending family claim. Borough Recovery Services. A concrete name, an actual lead. She spent the rest of Tuesday tracking down information about the company. Business registration records showed they'd operated from 1980 to 1993, specializing in fire and flood salvage work throughout Queens and Brooklyn. Their last known address was in Long Island City. Wednesday morning, Carolyn drove her Honda to Long Island City. The address was now a parking lot, the building long demolished. She stood in the cold December wind, staring at concrete and painted parking lines, trying not to feel defeated before she'd really begun. A woman emerged from the neighboring business, a print shop that looked like it had been there for decades. "Excuse me," Carolyn called out, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "Do you know what happened to Borough Recovery Services? They used to be next door." The woman, maybe 60 with kind eyes and a warm coat, paused. "Oh, they closed down. Must be 30 years ago now. Owner retired, I think." "Why?" "I'm trying to track down some items they salvaged from a fire back in 1985. 1985? The woman's eyebrows rose. "Honey, that's forever ago. When they closed, they auctioned off everything in their storage facility. Unclaimed items, you know. My husband went to one of those auctions, bought some tools." Carolyn's heart leapt. "Do you remember which auction house handled it?" "There were a couple they used. Estate sales, that sort of thing. Let me think." She pulled out her phone. "My husband might remember. He's got a memory for this kind of stuff. Give me your number. I'll have him call you." Carolyn's hands shook as she typed her number into the woman's phone. "Thank you, really. Thank you so much. Hope you find what you're looking for, sweetheart." Back in her apartment that evening, Carolyn spread out her notes on the kitchen table. The trail wasn't cold. It was ancient, 40 years old, passed through multiple hands, scattered to who knew where in the vast city. But it existed. That was the crucial thing. The items had been salvaged, stored, eventually sold, or donated when the family never claimed them, which meant they might still be out there, somewhere in the ecosystem of estate sales and thrift stores and private collections. Her phone rang Thursday afternoon. Unknown number. "This is Carolyn." "Hi there, this is Bill Martinez. My wife said you were asking about Borough Recovery Services." Carolyn sat up straight, nearly knocking over her coffee. Yes, I'm trying to track down items from a 1985 fire." 85, wow, that's going way back. I remember going to their liquidation auction in 93 or 94. They had everything: furniture, boxes of documents, clothes, tools. We bought some tools cheap. My buddy got some furniture. But the fire damage stuff, most people didn't want that. Too much work to restore. What happened to the items people didn't want? The auction house took it all. Estate liquidators of Queens, they were called. Run by this Polish guy, Bernie something. Very meticulous guy, kept detailed records of everything. If your items went through them, he might still have documentation. Are they still in business? Last I knew, yeah. Let me see. She heard typing. Yeah, here we go. Estate liquidators of Queens, still there. Same owner too. Bernie Kowalski. Want the address? Carolyn wrote it down, her hand cramping from how tightly she gripped the pen. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck, kid. I hope you find what you're looking for. Friday morning, Carolyn stood outside Estate Liquidators of Queens. The shop was wedged between a deli and laundromat. A bell chimed as she entered. The man behind the counter was 70, with wire-rimmed glasses and careful posture. Help you? Eastern European accent. Are you Bernie Kowalski? That's me. I'm looking for information about an auction from 1994, from Borough Recovery Services. Bernie's eyebrows rose. 1994, 32 years ago. Yes, items from a house fire, unclaimed storage. Why? Carolyn took a breath. Family heirlooms, wedding photos, love letters, a handmade apron. Lost in a fire. I'm trying to find them for the grandmother who lost everything. Something softened in Bernie's expression. Family heirlooms. Yes, she deserves her history back. Bernie was quiet. Then he sighed. I keep records. Everything, back to 1987. My wife says I'm crazy, but you never know when someone needs them. Hope flared. You have records from 1994? In the back. Give me a few minutes. He disappeared. Carolyn waited, heart pounding. Bernie returned with a large green ledger. He set it on the counter, dust rising. March through June, 1994. He opened it. Handwritten entries. What date? After Borough Recovery closed. Fire-damaged items. Bernie, who ran his finger down pages, stopped. Here, March 15th, 1994. Storage unit, 347. Borough Recovery liquidation. Fire-damaged items, miscellaneous. Carolyn leaned forward, breathless. Bernie read aloud. Photo albums, 4. Water and fire damage. Document box, letters and papers. Fire damage. Textiles lot, including... He paused. Apron, noted specifically. Smoke damage. That's them. Carolyn's voice shook. Has to be. Bernie looked up. After 40 years, you found them. Where did they go? Bernie traced across to the next column. His expression grew complicated. They split up, different buyers. He looked at Carolyn with pity. You found them, but now you have to find them 3 more times. Carolyn stared at the 40-year-old handwriting. Albums, 1 place. Letters, another. Apron, a 3rd. 3 impossible tasks. But she'd found the trail. Proof they existed, survived, were out there. She looked up. Where did they go? Bernie smiled slightly. Let me get my reading glasses. 2 hours later, Carolyn left with 3 addresses, 3 leads, and 16 days until New Year's Eve. The 3 addresses sat on Carolyn's kitchen table like accusations. Each one represented a separate, impossible task. A trail gone cold decades ago. A piece of Mama Sophie's history scattered to the wind. Photo albums. Donated to St. Agnes Church rummage sale. April 2nd, 1994. Document box. Letters. Note indicated, held for restoration, CJH. Followed by a name, Jong Ho Park. Paper conservator. Textiles. Apron. Consignment to Vintage Threads, Williamsburg. Carolyn made more coffee. It was Saturday morning, day 6 of her quest. 15 days until New Year's Eve. She started with what seemed easiest, the conservator. Jong Ho Park's business was listed online. Park Conservation Services in Flushing, still operating after 30 years. Carolyn called, got voicemail, left a message, trying not to sound desperate. Hi, this is Carolyn Wagner. I'm trying to track down some letters you might have worked on in 1994. Fire damage documents, Korean and English. If you could call me back, I'd really appreciate it. She didn't expect a response. 32 years was forever in business terms. While she waited, she tackled the church trail. St. Agnes Church was a beautiful old stone building in Flushing, the kind that had anchored the neighborhood for generations. Carolyn arrived just as Saturday morning mass was ending, parishioners streaming out into the cold December day. Inside, the church was quiet and smelled of incense and old wood. A woman in her 70s was arranging flowers near the altar. "Excuse me," Carolyn said softly. "I'm looking for information about a rummage sale from 1994. The woman turned, eyebrows raised. 1994? Dear, I've been here since 1982, but that's asking a lot of my memory. I'm trying to find some photo albums that were donated. They were fire damaged from an estate auction. The family never knew they still existed." The woman's expression softened. "Fire damaged. We used to get donations from that auction house, Bernie's Place. Most of the damaged items we couldn't sell went to St. Vincent de Paul. They had a thrift store network. Do you know which location? They had 15 stores back then. But..." She paused, thinking. Father Rodriguez might know. He wasn't here in 94, but Mrs. O'Brien was. She ran the rummage sales for 40 years. She's retired now, but still comes to daily mass. Is she here today? She was at the early service, lives 2 blocks over. The woman wrote down an address. Tell her Mary sent you, and that it's about family. She's a softie for family stories. 20 minutes later, Carolyn was standing on the porch of a tidy brick house, ringing the doorbell. An elderly woman answered, white-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a cardigan and reading glasses on a chain. "Mrs. O'Brien, Mary from St. Agnes sent me. I'm trying to track down some items from a 1994 rummage sale." Mrs. O'Brien studied her. 1994. That was our roof repair fundraiser. Come in. It's freezing out there. Her living room was warm and cluttered with photographs and religious artifacts. Mrs. O'Brien settled into an armchair and gestured for Carolyn to sit. "What items are you looking for?" "Photo albums. 4 of them, fire damaged. They would have come from an estate auction." "Fire damaged." Mrs. O'Brien's face brightened. "Oh, I remember those. Poor things. Water-stained covers, smoke smell. We tried to sell them, but nobody wanted them. The photos inside were still good, though. Just the albums themselves were damaged." Carolyn's heart raced. "What happened to them?" "We sent them to St. Vincent de Paul with a batch of other items. The Jamaica Avenue location, I think. They had more space for things that needed special handling." She paused. "This was 32 years ago, you understand. I can't promise they kept them. Do you remember anything about the photos? What was in them?" Mrs. O'Brien closed her eyes, thinking. "A wedding. Korean couple, I think. Or maybe the bride was Korean. Traditional dress in some photos, American style in others. Both families together. It was beautiful, actually. I remember thinking it was sad that someone lost those memories. They did." Carolyn's voice caught. "The grandmother lost everything in a fire. She doesn't even know these survived." Mrs. O'Brien's eyes glistened. Then you'd better find them. Try St. Vincent de Paul's main warehouse in the Bronx. They store overflow there. If the albums were too damaged to sell, but too precious to throw away, that's where they'd be. Carolyn left with the warehouse address and a blessing from Mrs. O'Brien, who'd insisted on saying a prayer for her search. Her phone rang as she reached her car. Unknown number. "This is Carolyn." "Ms. Wagner, this is Yong-Ho Park. You left a message about some letters." Carolyn nearly dropped the phone. "Yes. Thank you for calling back. I'm trying to find letters you might have worked on in 1994. They were from a fire, Korean, and English romantic correspondence." 1994. There was a long pause. "I did a lot of fire restoration work back then. Can you describe them more specifically?" "They would have been in a wooden box originally. Love letters between a married couple. The woman who brought them to you was an estate dealer named Jean Patterson." Another pause. Then, Oh, I remember those. Beautiful calligraphy. Very romantic. The fire damage was significant, but the paper quality was excellent. I stabilized them, put them in archival sleeves. Do you still have them?" "You know, I might. Ms. Patterson never came back to pick them up. I kept them because—" He laughed softly. "Because they were too beautiful to destroy. Letters like that, they're history, you know? Personal history. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away." Carolyn could barely breathe. "Could I come see them? Today?" "I'm at the studio now, working on a project. You can come by if you'd like." She had the address, memorized already. "I'll be there in 30 minutes." Park Conservation Services occupied a small storefront in a Flushing strip mall between a dry cleaner and a Korean grocery. Through the window, Carolyn could see work tables covered with careful tools and archival materials. Yong-Ho Park met her at the door, 60-something, Korean-American, with gentle hands and careful movements. His studio smelled of paper and chemicals, the particular scent of preservation work. "You're very determined," he said, studying her. "These letters, they mean something to you." "They mean everything to the woman who lost them." Carolyn explained about Mama Sophie, the fire, the 40 years of absence. Yong-Ho listened, then nodded slowly. "Come with me." He led her to a filing cabinet in the back, opened a drawer labeled Unclaimed, pre-2000. His fingers walked through archival boxes until he found what he was looking for. "Here." He pulled out a protective box, set it on the work table, opened it carefully. Inside were letters, dozens of them, each in an archival sleeve, the paper yellowed and smoke-stained, but readable. The handwriting was elegant, flowing between Korean characters and English words. Carolyn's hands trembled as she looked at the first one. "My dearest Sophie, the morning is cold here, but I am warm thinking of you. Yesterday, I walked past the park where we first met and remembered how nervous I was to speak to you. They're beautiful," she whispered. "They are." Yong-Ho looked at them with professional appreciation. "The paper is high quality, probably 1950s. The ink is iron gall, which is why it survived the fire better than modern ink would have. And the sentiment," he smiled. "This man loved his wife very much. He did, and she loved him. She's never stopped missing him." Yong-Ho closed the box carefully. "Then these need to go home." He held the box out to Carolyn. "Take them. They've been waiting 32 years. That's long enough." "I should pay." "You. You'll pay me by making sure they get to the right person. That's payment enough." His smile was kind. Some things aren't about money, Ms. Wagner. These letters are about love. You can't put a price on that. Carolyn left the studio, clutching the box like it was made of air, crying in her car for 5 minutes before she could drive. 1 found, 2 to go. She spent Sunday at the St. Vincent de Paul warehouse in the Bronx, a massive facility that looked like it stored donations from several decades. The manager was skeptical. "Lady, we've got 40 years of stuff here," until Carolyn explained about Mama Sophie and the fire. "All right," he sighed. "You've got 2 hours before we close. Fire damage photo albums from 1994 would be in the archival hold section, if they're here at all." The archival hold section was a dusty corner filled with boxes marked by year and condition. Carolyn started with 1994, pulling boxes, opening them, searching through water-damaged books and smoke-stained documents. Nothing in the first box, nothing in the second, third, fourth, fifth. 1 hour passed, 90 minutes. She was losing hope when she opened a box marked 1994, damaged goods, hold for assessment. Inside were books, photographs, papers, and at the bottom, 4 photo albums with smoke-stained covers. Carolyn lifted the first one out with shaking hands, opened it carefully. Wedding photos. A young Korean woman in a traditional hanbok, radiant with joy. A handsome Korean-American man in a suit. Both families gathered around them. Korean grandparents, American relatives, children in their best clothes. Everyone smiling. She checked the inside front cover. Faded inscription, Sophie and Jin. May 12th, 1954. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I found them." The manager came over. "You okay?" "I found them." She was crying again. "After 40 years, I found them." She left the warehouse with all 4 albums carefully wrapped. 2 pieces of Mama Sophie's history recovered. 1 left, the apron. Monday morning, Carolyn tackled the final trail. Vintage Threads had closed years ago, but she tracked down the owner through Instagram, Stella Martinez, now running an online vintage business from Hoboken. Carolyn drove across the river, found Stella's apartment building, knocked on the door. Stella was 50-something, vibrant and surrounded by vintage clothing. "You're the woman who called about the apron from 1994. "Yes, I know it's a long shot. Come in, come in. I never throw anything away. That's why I have 3 storage units." Stella led her into an apartment that looked like a vintage boutique exploded. "I photograph everything before I sell or alter it. Let me check my archives." She sat at a computer, pulling up thousands of catalogued images. Korean apron, hand-sewn, smoke damage. Let me search by year first. Scrolling. Carolyn watched the screen, barely breathing. "Wait." Stella leaned forward. "This." On the screen, a photo of an apron, traditional Korean design, intricate embroidery, slightly smoke-stained, but intact. "That's it," Carolyn breathed. "I remember this piece. The embroidery was incredible. I sold it to a collector in 2002. Korean textile enthusiast. She was a professor at Columbia, I think. Korean Studies Department. Dr. Helen Sung. Do you have contact information?" "No, but she's probably still there. The university website should have her." 10 minutes later, Carolyn was on the Columbia website, finding Dr. Sung's faculty page, sending an email explaining her search. The response came an hour later. "Come to my office. Tuesday, 2 p.m. I may be able to help." Tuesday afternoon, Carolyn sat in Dr. Helen Sung's Columbia office, surrounded by Korean textiles and academic books. "You've been searching for this apron for how long?" Dr. Sung asked. 2 weeks. but it's been lost for 40 years. Carolyn explained everything. The fire, Mama Sophie's loss, the desperate search through decades of scattered trails. Dr. Sung listened, then stood and went to a filing cabinet. I collect traditional Korean aprons. They're pieces of cultural history, examples of immigrant adaptation. This one, she pulled out a catalogued photo. This one was special because of the embroidery pattern. Traditional Korean designs combined with American floral elements, a perfect representation of cultural bridging. Do you still have it? I do. Dr. Sung looked at Carolyn seriously. These pieces are valuable, culturally and monetarily. I paid quite a bit for it. I'll buy it from you. Whatever you paid, I'll double it. It's not about money, Miss Wagner. Dr. Sung pulled out her phone, made a call in Korean, then looked back at Carolyn. It's about where it belongs. This apron was made with love, worn with love, lost in tragedy. You spent 2 weeks tracking it down for a woman you're not even related to yet. Yet, Dr. Sung smiled. You will be. No one works this hard unless they're already family in their heart. She disappeared into a back room, returned with an archival box. Inside, carefully preserved, was the apron. Traditional Korean design, intricate embroidery of flowers and birds, slightly smoke-stained, but beautiful. A small tag sewn inside showed initials in Korean characters. Her mother made this, Carolyn whispered. And now, it goes home. Dr. Sung closed the box, handed it to Carolyn. Tell the grandmother that her mother's hands live in every stitch. Tell her that some things survive fire because they're meant to survive. Carolyn couldn't speak. She just nodded, holding the box. 3 items, all found. Impossible tasks completed. She had 7 days until New Year's Eve. Carolyn stood in her apartment surrounded by impossible things. The letters sat in their archival box on her dining table. Jong-ho's careful preservation work protecting 40 years of love written in ink. The 4 photo albums were spread across her couch, each one open to reveal moments frozen in time. Young Sophie radiant in her wedding hanbok. Jin handsome and proud, both families gathered in joy. And the apron lay carefully wrapped in tissue paper, its embroidery still vibrant despite decades and smoke damage. Every stitch a testament to a mother's love across an ocean. She'd found them. All 3 pieces of Mama Sophie's lost history, scattered across the city for 40 years. And she'd tracked them down in 2 weeks. It seemed impossible. It was impossible. And yet here they were, tangible proof that some things lost could still be found. It was Wednesday, December 28th, 4 days until New Year's Eve. Carolyn's phone buzzed. Kang Min. Dinner tonight. I miss you. You've been so busy lately. She'd been avoiding him, making excuses about work deadlines and client emergencies. The deception sat heavy in her chest, but she couldn't tell him yet. Couldn't risk him trying to talk her out of it, or worse, helping in a way that would make this less her gift. Can't tonight. Big project deadline. Tomorrow? You're killing me. Fine, tomorrow. But I'm picking the restaurant, and you're not allowed to check your phone. She smiled, despite her exhaustion. Deal. She set down her phone and looked at the items again. Found, yes, but not ready to give. The albums were smoke-stained, pages delicate. The letters were preserved but needed proper presentation. The apron required gentle cleaning. She couldn't give Mama Sophie damaged treasures. She needed to restore them, or at least stabilize them properly. Make them worthy of the moment. Carolyn called Jong-ho Park. "Mr. Park, it's Carolyn Wagner. I found the other items, the albums and the apron, but they need work, professional conservation. Is there any way you could help me? I have 4 days." There was a pause. 4 days is very fast for proper conservation work. "I know, but New Year's Eve is when I need to give them to her. It has to be then. The symbolism, the family gathering, everything." Another pause. Then, "Bring them to me. I'll see what I can do." By Thursday morning, Carolyn was back at Park Conservation Services. Jong-ho examined each item carefully. The albums, their pages, the apron's fabric. "The albums need careful handling. The pages are stable, but the covers are deteriorated. I can reinforce them, treat the smoke staining. The apron." He held it up to the light. "This is beautiful work. The smoke damage is mostly superficial. I can clean it gently, press it properly. The embroidery will shine again." "How long?" "2 days, if I work straight through." He looked at her seriously. "This is a lot of labor, Miss Wagner. Professional conservation doesn't come cheap. I don't care what it costs. These need to be perfect. They won't be perfect. They'll always show their history, but they'll be preserved, honored, presentable." He smiled slightly. "That's better than perfect, I think. Perfect means untouched. These have been touched by fire and time and loss. That matters." "You're right." Carolyn took a breath. "What do you need from me?" "Come back Saturday afternoon. I'll have them ready." She left the studio feeling lighter. Professional hands were caring for the items now. They'd be ready. Everything was falling into place. Thursday evening, she met Kang Min at a Korean restaurant in Koreatown. He stood when she entered, and the sight of him made her heart ache with affection and guilt. She'd been lying to him for 2 weeks, avoiding him, hiding this enormous thing. "There she is," he said, pulling her into a hug. "I was starting to think you'd found someone else." "Never." She kissed him, just drowning in work. They ordered japchae, galbi, banchan, all the comfort foods she'd grown to love. Kang Min watched her across the table with that intensity he had, the way he seemed to see through walls. "You look exhausted," he said finally. "Big project, lots of late nights." "The project must be important." "It is." That was true, at least. More important than me? He was teasing, but there was a real question underneath. Carolyn reached across the table, took his hand. "Nothing is more important than you. This project is just, it has a hard deadline. After New Year's, everything goes back to normal, I promise." He squeezed her hand. "You'd tell me if something was wrong, if you needed help." "I would." Another lie. Or maybe not. She didn't need help. She needed to do this herself. They talked about other things, his restaurants, her design firm, his family's New Year's Eve plans. Casual conversation that felt normal and grounding. "You're coming to New Year's, right?" he asked. Mama Sophie specifically asked if you'd be there. Carolyn's pulse quickened. She did. "She likes you. I told you." He smiled. "She asked my mother if you were coming, if we were serious, what your intentions were." Classic Mama Sophie interrogation, but the fact that she's asking means she's invested. "What did your mother say?" "That we're very serious, that you're family." He paused. "That's how I feel, you know. Like you're already family, like you've always been part of us." Tears threatened. Carolyn blinked them away. "I feel that way too." "So, New Year's Eve, you'll be there?" "I'll be there." She met his eyes. I promise, and I'll have a surprise. A surprise? You'll see. He studied her, that penetrating look again, then nodded. All right, I'll wait. Friday passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Carolyn couldn't focus on anything, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. What if Mama Sophie was angry? What if bringing back these memories was painful instead of healing? What if she'd made peace with the loss and Carolyn was just reopening old wounds? What if the restoration wasn't good enough? What if the items still looked too damaged, too far gone? What if Mama Sophie thought Carolyn was overstepping, trying too hard, making everything about herself instead of just accepting the family as it was? She called her father Friday evening, needing to hear his voice. Dad, do you have a minute? For my brilliant daughter, always. What's wrong? She explained the whole thing. The dinner, the story about the fire, the impossible search, finding all 3 items. She even explained her fears about whether she was doing the right thing. Her father was quiet for a long moment after she finished. Then, baby girl, do you remember when your mama was sick? At the end? Of course. Do you remember what she said about her regrets? Carolyn did. Her mother, weak and tired, had talked about all the photos she wished she'd taken, the letters she wished she'd saved, the recipes she wished she'd written down. She said she wished she'd preserved more, captured more. That's right. Because memory isn't enough. Not really. We need touchstones. Proof that our loves were real, that our history happened. You're giving this woman back her proof. Her father's voice was gentle. That's not overstepping, sweetheart. That's love. Real, active, complicated love. What if she's upset? Then you deal with it together. But I don't think she will be. I think she's going to see you the way I see you, as someone with a huge heart who fights for the people she loves. After they hung up, Carolyn felt steadier. Her father was right. This was love, active and complicated. And love was always worth the risk. Saturday afternoon, she returned to Park Conservation Services. Jong-ho was waiting, and the change in the items was remarkable. The photo albums had been carefully restored. The covers were still smoke-stained. History should show, Jong-ho explained, but they were stable now, reinforced, safe to handle. The pages had been gently cleaned, the photos themselves protected with archival sleeves. Each album was wrapped in acid-free tissue. The letters were already in their protective box, but Jong-ho had added a small card explaining their preservation in both English and Korean, in case Mama Sophie wanted to know the technical details. The apron was stunning. Jong-ho had cleaned it so gently that the smoke smell was gone, but the fabric's age remained visible. He'd pressed it carefully, and the embroidery seemed to glow. Flowers and birds in traditional Korean colors, intricate stitching that spoke of hours of patient love. Her mother made this by hand, Carolyn said softly, running her finger along the edge without touching the delicate fabric. You can see the love in every stitch, Jong-ho agreed. That's what makes it precious. Not perfection, love. He'd packaged everything in archival boxes, proper storage that would protect the items for another 40 years if needed. He handed her an invoice. Carolyn looked at the total and pulled out her credit card without hesitation. Worth every penny, worth more. Ms. Wagner, Jong-ho said as she was leaving, what you've done, tracking down these items, bringing them home, that's remarkable. The grandmother is lucky to have you in her family. I'm lucky to have her, Carolyn replied, and meant it. Back at her apartment, she spent Saturday evening carefully wrapping each item for presentation. Not elaborately. This wasn't about show. Just simple, elegant wrapping paper in deep burgundy, tied with ribbon. 3 boxes, 3 pieces of history, 40 years of absence ending. She didn't sleep Saturday night. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios, imagining reactions, terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Sunday, New Year's Eve, dawned cold and bright. Carolyn showered, dressed carefully in a simple black dress, elegant but not showy. She wanted the focus on the gifts, not her. The boxes sat on her counter, wrapped and ready. She touched each one gently. Letters, Jin's voice, speaking to Sophie across decades. Albums, proof that her family existed, that their joy was real. Apron, her mother's hands, stitched into fabric, waiting to come home. Her phone buzzed. Kang Min, picking you up at 5. Wear something warm. We're doing champagne on the terrace at midnight. I'll be ready. She had 4 hours. 4 hours until she walked into that house carrying 40 years of loss transformed into hope. 4 hours until she knelt beside Mama Sophie's chair and handed her the impossible. Carolyn looked at herself in the mirror. She looked terrified. She looked determined. She looked like someone about to change everything. You can do this, she told her reflection. You found them. You brought them home. Now you finish it. She carefully placed the 3 boxes in a shopping bag, handling them like they were made of air and prayer. 4 hours until New Year's Eve dinner. 4 hours until the most important moment of her life. 4 hours until she found out if love and determination were enough to heal a 40-year-old wound. The boxes sat by the door, waiting. Carolyn took a deep breath and started getting ready. The house was ablaze with light and laughter when Kang Min's Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Through the windows, Carolyn could see the family already gathered. Uncles arguing good-naturedly, children running between rooms, the warm chaos of people who loved each other. New Year's Eve, the end of one year, the beginning of another. The perfect moment for bringing the past into the present. You're quiet, Kang Min said, turning off the engine. He studied her face in the dim light. Nervous about tonight? A little. A massive understatement. Carolyn's heart was hammering so hard she could barely breathe. The shopping bag with its 3 wrapped boxes sat at her feet like a live thing. Don't be. You're family now. Mama Sophie made that clear. He reached over, squeezed her hand. Whatever you're worried about, let it go. Just be here with us. If only he knew what she was carrying, what she was about to do. They walked to the door together, Kang Min's arm around her waist, Carolyn clutching the shopping bag. Inside, the warmth and noise enveloped them immediately. Kang Min, Carolyn. Grace appeared, elegant in a silver dress, her face bright with welcome. Come in, come in. We're just putting out the food. The dining room table was covered with dishes. Teoguk for New Year's, japchae, galbi, countless banchan, a spread that could feed an army. The family was already gathering, finding seats, pouring drinks, and at the head of the table, in her customary place of honor, sat Mama Sophie. She wore deep purple tonight, a jade pendant at her throat, her white hair perfectly arranged. When she saw Carolyn, something softened in her face. Not quite a smile, but close. Acceptance. Carolyn, she said, her accented English formal. You came. I wouldn't miss it, Mama Sophie. Good. Sit. Eat. We celebrate the new year together. Dinner was the usual controlled chaos, conversations in Korean and English, laughter, food passed back and forth, children told to sit, still, adults refilling wine glasses. Carolyn tried to eat but couldn't manage more than a few bites. The shopping bag sat beside her chair, its contents burning a hole in her consciousness. Kang Min noticed. "You okay? You've barely touched your food." "Just excited for midnight," she managed. Ji-yoon, across the table, leaned over. "You look like you're about to jump out of your skin. Big New Year's resolution planned." "Something like that." The meal stretched on. Dessert, tea, after-dinner drinks. The children were getting restless, the adults mellow with food and wine. Someone turned on the television, the New Year's Eve coverage from Times Square, showing the countdown preparations. 10 o'clock, 11. The night was slipping away. Carolyn's hands were shaking. She needed to do this soon, before midnight, before the champagne toasts and celebration overwhelmed everything. This needed its own moment, its own space. At 11:15, as the family was moving from the dining room to the living room for the countdown, Carolyn caught Grace's arm. "I need to give Mama Sophie something," she said quietly. "Before midnight. Is that okay?" Grace studied her face, saw something there that made her expression shift. "Of course. Let me gather everyone in the living room. You can do it there." 5 minutes later, the family was assembled. Children on the floor, adults on sofas and chairs, Mama Sophie in her favorite seat by the window. The television played softly in the background, the Times Square crowd counting down to something still 40 minutes away. Carolyn stood in the center of the room, the shopping bag in her hands, and suddenly everyone was looking at her. Her voice came out shaky. She cleared her throat, started again. "I wanted to give Mama Sophie something before the new year starts, before we toast to new beginnings." "Wait, Carolyn just found proof the items exist. That's the good news. The bad news? They're split up. 3 different locations. 3 separate impossible searches. And she just lost 2 days of her 3-week deadline. The clock's ticking and the stakes just got higher. Subscribe now, because what happens next? The conservator, the church, the vintage shop, is where this story goes from impossible to absolutely insane. Kang Min was staring at her, confused. "Carolyn, what?" "Please," she said softly. "Let me do this." She walked to Mama Sophie's chair, her legs unsteady, and knelt beside it the way she'd imagined 1,000 times. The position put them at eye level, this tiny, fierce woman who'd survived so much, and Carolyn, who'd spent 2 weeks trying to undo one loss. "Mama Sophie," Carolyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I came to dinner last month, I heard about the fire, about what you lost that night." Mama Sophie's expression shuttered immediately. "We don't talk about that." "I know, but..." Carolyn reached into the bag, pulled out the first box. Her hands were shaking so badly the ribbon quivered. "I couldn't stop thinking about it, about what it must have been like, and I thought, what if they weren't completely gone? What if something survived?" Nothing survived. Mama Sophie's voice was flat, years of forced acceptance in those 2 words. "The firefighters said total loss." "Not total." Carolyn held out the first box. "Please, open it." The room was completely silent now. Even the children had gone still, sensing something important was happening. Mama Sophie took the box with hands that trembled slightly. She untied the ribbon with careful fingers, pulled away the wrapping paper, opened the archival box inside and went completely still. "These are—" Her voice broke. She lifted out the protective sleeve, saw the first letter inside. Jin's handwriting, elegant and flowing, Korean characters mixed with English words. "These are Jin's letters. From before you married," Carolyn said softly. "And after, when he traveled, all of them. They were salvaged from the fire, stored, eventually ended up with a conservator who kept them because they were too beautiful to destroy." Mama Sophie pulled out another letter, then another, her hands shaking harder now. She read the first lines of one, and a sound came out of her, half sob, half gasp. "My dearest Sophie," she read aloud in Korean, then English. "The morning is cold here, but I am warm thinking of you." She pressed the letter to her chest. "This is his voice, his actual voice. I thought I'd forgotten the exact way he said things, but here it is. Here he is." Tears were streaming down her face now, decades of carefully controlled grief breaking open. Grace had her hand over her mouth, crying. Ji-yoon was openly sobbing. Kang-min was staring at Carolyn with an expression of absolute shock. "There's more," Carolyn said gently. She pulled out the second box. "This one too." Mama Sophie's hands shook so badly that Grace came over to help her unwrap it. When they opened the box and saw the photo albums, Mama Sophie made a sound like all the air had been punched out of her. "My wedding," she whispered. She lifted out the first album, opened it with trembling hands. "Oh, oh, my family." The first photo showed young Sophie in her wedding handbook, radiant with joy, surrounded by both families. Her parents, her siblings, Jin's family, everyone gathered in celebration. "My mother," Mama Sophie whispered, touching the photo. "My Uma. Look at her face. Look how happy she was." She turned the page. "And my father, and Jin's parents, all of them here." She paged through slowly, tears falling on the protective sleeves. Each photo a revelation, a memory restored, a face she'd thought she'd lost forever, suddenly present and real. "I thought I'd never see them again," she said brokenly. "I thought they were gone. How did you find these? How is this possible?" Estate auctions, salvage records, church donations. Carolyn was crying now too. They were scattered across the city, but they existed. They survived. They were waiting to come home. Mama Sophie looked up at her, tears streaming. "You found them. You brought them back." "There's one more thing." Carolyn pulled out the final box, the largest one. "This one is from your mother." Mama Sophie's hands couldn't manage the wrapping. Grace helped again, opening the box, pulling away tissue paper. The apron lay inside, the embroidery glowing in the lamplight. Traditional Korean flowers and birds, intricate stitching, every thread a testament to a mother's love. Mama Sophie lifted it out with shaking hands, held it to her face, and broke down completely. "Uma," she sobbed in Korean. "Uma, Uma, Uma." She clutched the apron like a lifeline, rocking slightly, decades of loss pouring out. "I wore this learning to cook American food. She sent it with me when I came to this country. It was all I had of her, all I had." Grace was kneeling beside her mother-in-law now, arms around her, both of them crying. Ji-yoon was crying. Half the family was crying. Even the children were silent and wide-eyed, sensing the enormity of the moment. Kang-min knelt beside Carolyn, put his arm around her. "You did this." His voice was thick with emotion. "All of this." "I had to try," Carolyn whispered. She deserved to have them back. Mama Sophie was running her fingers over the apron's embroidery, touching each flower, each bird, as if reading Braille. My mother made this. Her hand stitched every thread. I can feel her in it. I can feel her love. She looked up at Carolyn, her face transformed by grief and joy mixed together. How did you do this? How did you find them? Because you matter, Carolyn said, her voice breaking. Your history matters. Your love matters. And I wanted to show you that I see all of it, all of you, everything you've lost, everything you've survived, everything you've built. Why? Mama Sophie's voice was raw. Why would you do this for me? Because family brings each other home, Carolyn said simply. And you're my family. You've been my family since the moment you touched my hand and told me I had strength. I wanted to prove you were right, that I was strong enough to do the impossible for the people I love. Mama Sophie set down the apron carefully, took Carolyn's face in both hands. Her palms were soft and warm and trembling. You brought them back, she said, switching to Korean, then back to English. You brought all of them back, my Jin, my mother, my family. 40 years they were gone and you found them. You brought them home. She pulled Carolyn into a fierce embrace, holding her tight, and Carolyn could feel the older woman shaking with sobs. My daughter, Mama Sophie said against her hair. My granddaughter. My family. She pulled back, still holding Carolyn's face. You are not Kang Min's girlfriend anymore. You are my granddaughter. Today, this moment, forever. You understand? Yes, Mama Sophie. No. She shook her head. Not Mama Sophie. Halmeoni. Grandmother. You call me Halmeoni now. Halmeoni, Carolyn whispered, and Mama Sophie pulled her close again. The family gathered around them. Grace and Ji-yoon and Antonio and David and all the aunts and uncles and cousins, everyone crying and laughing at once. Kang Min held Carolyn from behind, his face buried in her hair, his shoulders shaking. On the television, the countdown reached midnight. The ball dropped in Times Square. Fireworks exploded. The crowd roared. But in the Westchester house, time had stopped. Or maybe it had finally started moving again after 40 years of stasis. Mama Sophie sat with the letters in her lap, the photo album spread around her, the apron clutched to her chest. She was crying and smiling at once, touching each treasure as if confirming they were real. Happy New Year, Halmeoni, Carolyn whispered. Happy New Year, my precious granddaughter, Mama Sophie replied. Thank you. Thank you for bringing them home. Thank you for bringing me home. The champagne went uncorked eventually. Toasts were made, resolutions declared, the new year welcomed properly. But the real celebration had already happened. Not the turning of a calendar, but the restoration of a history, the healing of a 40-year wound, the proof that some loves survive everything, even fire. And in the center of it all, Mama Sophie sat holding the pieces of her past, finally made whole again. 6 weeks later, Carolyn stood in Mama Sophie's kitchen, learning to make teoguk the traditional way. The apron, her great-grandmother's apron now, though the title still felt surreal, hung on a hook by the stove, too precious for everyday use but present, a silent witness to the continuation of family traditions. No, no, Mama Sophie said, her hands guiding Carolyn's as they sliced the rice cakes. Thinner. You want them to cook evenly in the broth. Like this. Better. You're learning. It had become their Sunday ritual. Carolyn would drive up to Westchester, and Mama Sophie would teach her recipes while they looked through the photo albums together. Each week, a new story emerged from the old photographs. "This was my brother," Mama Sophie said, pointing to a young man in one of the wedding photos. "He died in 1987. I always wished I could remember his face more clearly. Now I can see him whenever I want." The albums lived in a special cabinet in the living room now, handled with care but looked at often. The letters stayed in Mama Sophie's bedroom in the archival box, but she read one every night before sleeping. Jin's voice, speaking to her across the decades. "You gave me back my husband," she told Carolyn last week. "Not just memories of him, his actual words, his actual voice. Do you know what that means to me?" Carolyn thought she did. She thought about her own mother, gone 15 years now, and how she'd give anything for one more letter, one more captured moment in her mother's handwriting. "Kangmin wants to talk to you today," Mama Sophie said now, focusing on the soup. "He's been planning something." "Planning what?" Mama Sophie's smile was knowing. "You'll see. But I tell you this, you say yes when he asks, or I'll be very disappointed." Carolyn's heart skipped. "Halmione. I'm old, not blind. That boy has been walking around with a ring box in his pocket for 2 weeks. He's waiting for the right moment." She patted Carolyn's hand. "Today is the right moment." 3 months later, the rooftop restaurant overlooked the Manhattan skyline at sunset. The city spread below them in gold and shadow. Kang Min had brought her here under the pretense of celebrating a successful quarter for his restaurant group. But Carolyn had suspected something more since Mama Sophie's knowing smile that morning. "I had a whole speech planned," Kang Min said, taking her hands in his. "Something about how you changed my life, how you healed my family, how I can't imagine tomorrow without you." "But," Carolyn's voice was shaky with anticipation, "but the truth is simpler than all that." He pulled out a small velvet box. "I love you. I want forever with you. I want Sunday dinners and family chaos and teaching our children Halmione's recipes from the photo albums you found." He opened the box. The ring was stunning. Mama Sophie's original diamond, the one from her engagement ring, reset in a modern design with small sapphires. "Halmione insisted I use her stone," Kang Min said. "She said it's seen 70 years of love and should see 70 more. She said this ring has been waiting for you since before we met." "Yes," Carolyn said, laughing through tears. "Yes, yes, yes." He slid the ring onto her finger, and it caught the sunset light, glowing with history and promise mixed together. "Welcome to forever," he said, pulling her close. The wedding. 6 months later, the church was packed. Carolyn's family and friends filled one side, her father beaming in the front row, her college roommates crying in the third pew, her design firm colleagues scattered throughout. Kang Min's massive extended family filled the other side and spilled into the middle. Carolyn wore a dress that honored both traditions. White silk with Korean-inspired embroidery, a fusion of cultures like her life had become. In her bouquet, tucked among the flowers, was a small photo from Mama Sophie's wedding album, her own mother's face smiling up at her. But the moment that made everyone cry was when Mama Sophie stood to give a toast at the reception. She was 83 now, a year older than when Carolyn had first met her, but she seemed somehow younger, lighter, as if recovering her lost history had lifted a weight she'd carried for 40 years. When Kang Min first brought Carolyn to Sunday dinner, Mama Sophie said, her voice carrying across the crowded restaurant. I tested her. I test everyone. Most fail. Laughter rippled through the room. But Carolyn didn't just pass my tests. She did something I thought was impossible. She went back 40 years and found pieces of my heart I thought were lost forever. Her voice thickened with emotion. She found my husband's words, my mother's hands, my family's faces. She brought them all back to life. She lifted her glass. That's the woman my grandson is marrying. That's the granddaughter I gained. Someone who sees what's broken and finds a way to fix it. Someone who understands that family isn't just about blood. It's about showing up, fighting for each other, bringing each other home. To Carolyn and Kang Min, she said, may your love survive everything, the way my Jin's letters survived the fire. May you build something that lasts generations. And may you always remember, family brings each other home. The room erupted in cheers and tears. Carolyn was crying too hard to speak, so she just raised her glass and mouthed, I love you, to Mama Sophie, who nodded and smiled and touched the jade pendant at her throat. 2 years later, it's a girl, the doctor said. Congratulations. Carolyn lay exhausted in the hospital bed, the baby on her chest, Kang Min beside her with tears streaming down his face. Their daughter was perfect, tiny and wrinkled and beautiful, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that worked perfectly well. Mama Sophie arrived an hour later, moving slower now at 85, but still sharp-eyed and commanding. She looked at the baby and smiled, that rare, full smile that transformed her face. She has Jin's eyes, she said softly. Look at those eyes. It was true. Something in the baby's face echoed the young man in the wedding photos, a genetic memory passed down through generations. We named her Sophie Jin, Carolyn said. If that's okay. Sophie for you, Jin for great-grandfather. Mama Sophie's eyes filled with tears. She touched the baby's tiny hand with one finger. My name, his name, continuing. She looked at Carolyn. You gave me back the past. Now you give me the future. We give you the future, Carolyn corrected. All of us together. 4 years later, little Sophie Jin, nearly 4 now, sat on Mama Sophie's lap in the kitchen while Carolyn made kimchi. The photo albums were spread on the table. They'd become teaching tools, ways to show the children who they came from. This is your great-great-grandfather Jin, Mama Sophie said, pointing to a photo. He was very smart and very kind, and he loved your great-great-grandmother, me, very much. You're in the picture too, Sophie Jin said, delighted. You were young, very young, and very happy. Mama Sophie turned the page. This was my mother, your great-great-great-grandmother. She made the apron hanging by the stove. See the flowers she embroidered. She did that by hand, every stitch. Can I learn to embroider? Someday, when you're older, I'll teach you everything she taught me. Carolyn watched from across the kitchen, her hands busy with vegetables, her heart full. A second baby was due in 3 months. A boy this time, they'd learned. The family was growing, expanding, continuing. Mama Sophie caught her eye and smiled. You're thinking something? Just that I'm grateful for all of this, for you. I'm the one who should be grateful. You gave me back my history, and now look. She gestured to Sophie Jin, to Carolyn's pregnant belly, to the kitchen full of family and food and love. Now we're building new history, for them to remember, for them to pass on. That night, after Sophie Jin was in bed, After Kang Min had fallen asleep, Carolyn stood in the kitchen, looking at the apron hanging on its hook. She thought about that first Sunday dinner, about Mama Sophie's melancholy, about a grief so deep it had gone silent. She thought about 2 weeks of desperate searching, about impossible tasks completed, about love proven through action. And she thought about this, the continuation, the legacy, the way one act of devotion had rippled forward, healing the past and securing the future at once. The apron hung in her kitchen now. Sophie Jin would inherit it someday, along with the photo albums and the letters and the stories. She'd pass them to her children, who'd pass them to theirs, generation after generation. Some things survive fire. Some things survive time. Some things survive everything because they're made of love. And love, real, active, complicated love, is indestructible. Carolyn touched the apron gently, feeling the embroidery her great-grandmother-in-law had stitched across an ocean, across decades, across loss and survival and hope. "Thank you," she whispered to the woman she'd never met but knew through thread and care. "Thank you for making this, for sending it with her, for loving her enough to give her something to hold on to." And somewhere in the house, in Mama Sophie's bedroom, Jin's letters rested in their archival box, waiting for tomorrow's reading. His voice preserved, speaking across death, proving that some loves never end. They just wait to be found and brought home. So, are you crying? Because I'm crying. This story gets me every single time. Carolyn didn't just find lost treasures. She found a way to heal a wound that had been bleeding quietly for 40 years. She proved that love isn't just a feeling. It's action. It's determination. It's refusing to accept that some things can't be fixed. Mama Sophie got her history back. Jin's voice returned. Her mother's hands came home. And Carolyn became family, not because of blood, but because of what she was willing to do. If you loved this journey, subscribe. I've got more stories coming that will hit you right in the heart. The kind that remind you why love matters, why family matters, why fighting for each other matters. And watch my next video. Trust me, it's going to be worth it. Thank you for reading. Thank you for caring about these characters as much as I do. Until next time, keep believing in miracles.